Welcome to part 2 of this 2-part series on the workflow efficiency of film production. If you haven't already, watch the precursor to this episode. Part 1 focused on the proper organization of the field assets and will help explain some of the processes that take place in this video. Let's get going. We're now into the meat of the tutorial. All our media is backed up, metadata is tagged correctly, and now it's time to edit. I use exclusively Adobe products, as it's the only real professional solution for having an efficient workflow. Plus, you get free updates and new versions when they are released. The apps communicate with each other, which eliminates the need to do any kind of exporting or transcoding as you move between them. I could go on and on. The computer I'm running is nothing special, a 2017 iMac with middle-grade RAM and processor. It's spring of 2021 now, which means it's time to upgrade computers soon. A 4 to 5 year lifespan on a computer is quite a long time. In Premiere, create a new project, save it in the Project Files folder, and give it the name of the project you've been using so far. Again, consistency. I also use version numbers and frequently save as a new version, just in case I want to go back. Speaking of consistency, build the same folder structure in Premiere as you have on your hard drive. Import your footage using the media browser. If you feel the need to organize the footage into separate bins, now's the time to do it. The clip metadata can clue you into which day the footage was shot and the camera label. The goal in this step of the workflow is to get a picture lock. Have your sequence to the point where you and the client are happy with the editing, not necessarily the sound, color, framing, graphics. All those fine details will come later. For now, just get your edit to a point where you no longer need to change the timing or position of any of the clips. Add a sequence folder to your bin structure and add a sequence. The specs on this sequence are not important whatsoever, except the frame rate. Make sure that matches your footage. To speed things up, I make a proxy 1080p sequence. You'll notice we're using 6K RED footage in the original RAW format. You should never transcode or use any kind of proxy workflow with your footage. It's no longer 2002. These 6K RAW clips, or whatever you have, will play back with ease. Just add the clips to your sequence and select Scale to Frame Size. The secret is that it's not scaling the clips at all. The software is just not bothering with the extra pixels, allowing the system to run much faster. And if you need any more power, reduce the resolution in the viewer to half or quarter. I recommend setting up a keyboard shortcut for this so you don't have to right-click on all the clips. If you wish to access the raw data to say change the ISO or white balance of the red clips, select the clip in the viewer or timeline and navigate to the Master tab in the Effects Control panel. These options are not available if you transcoded before ingesting the footage. Just another huge time and money saver by shooting raw. Okay, so 2 years have gone by and your movie is finally picture locked. The next step is to prepare everything for finish work. Save your project, then save it again. This time as a copy and note that this is the output version. Locate your picture locked sequence and delete all other sequences you might have. Then select the sequence and go up to Edit, Remove Unused. This will go through your entire project and remove anything that's not a part of this one sequence. Next, we want to remove that scale to frame size applied earlier to all the clips, so they can go back to their original form. The 6K clips obviously don't fit in this sequence, but never mind that. Save your output project file, and we're off to the next step. Sound is a topic that's massively complex, but I'm just going to show you quickly how I move between applications. At this point, your sound should be mixed, panned, effects added, noise reduced, and room tone added. Now we want to bounce all of our audio tracks into a stereo master file. Select the output sequence and export media. WAV file, 32-bit float are the best options. Put this in the renders folder on your hard drive, call it stereo output, take this 32-bit stereo file into your sound editor of choice and apply some mastering to it. Multiband compression, EQing, limiting, and loudness standards are all things you're probably going to want to do to your mix. Once you're finished, save it as your stereo master, 48K 24-bit WAV in the same renders folder, close your audio program, head back to Premiere, remove all of the audio in your sequence, add the file you just created as a new track, remove the unused tracks, save, close Premiere, and meet me in the color correction segment. At this stage, we're going to do more than just color correction. Any kind of reframing, graphics and titles, stabilization, all gets taken care of at this stage. and all you need is After Effects. Open After Effects and save your new project in the Project Files folder on your hard drive. We're now going to import our output sequence for Premiere by going to File, Import Premiere Pro Project File. After Effects will import all the clips and the sequence from your Premiere project file, which is why we removed the unused. No need to bog the system down any more than necessary. Speaking of bogging down the system, I recommend clearing as much RAM space as necessary for this part of the workflow. Open your terminal and type in sudo purge. Type in your password and hit enter. Locate and double-click your sequence. You will see all the clips from Premiere lined up in layers, right where they should be. Now, let's fix our sequence settings. This sequence will be your master, so make sure it's the highest resolution output that you will need, and make sure the aspect ratio is the way you want it, so there's no letterboxing. If you want to fit everything to a 16:9 or 2.4:1, you can do that later in a pre-comp. First things first, there's a bit of a glitch in the latest versions of After Effects when it comes to that stereo master audio file. For some reason, the levels are attenuated on that layer. You can see by the size of the waveforms. Just delete it and replace it with the WAV file that's in your project browser. Now to downscale those 6K clips properly so they fit in the 4K comp. Select all the layers, right-click, and go to Transform to Comp Height. Now everything has been scaled the right way, not like we did in Premiere. You can see by the Layers Scale property. Just like the Masters tab inside Premiere, you can access the raw color data in After Effects as well. Right-click on the clip you want to change, select Interpret Footage, Main, and More Options. This will bring up the red options. Now it's time to add adjustment layers to get that footage looking its best. I've created some plugins for After Effects that makes doing this super easy. Just select the layer you want to work on and click one of the options. The top is for adding a blank adjustment layer. Next is for adding an adjustment layer with the illuminatory effect applied. The pin is for adding a null object, square for a solid layer, and there's also a gradient layer in camera if you need. Selecting multiple layers and clicking adds one tool across all of them, or hold down Shift and click to add multiple individual tools across the layers. This one plugin is responsible for hours upon hours of saved time. If you'd like to use them for yourself, head over to our Escaping Time Patreon and make a donation. I will send you the plugins with more in-depth instructions. Trust me, if you use After Effects for any kind of finish work, it's worth it. Okay, finally you've spiced up every shot, added graphics, credits, stabilized those shaky shots, and now the time has come to export your movie. We're going to use After Effects to render out a master ProRes file, and then from that, crunch it down into web, mobile, and DCP versions using Media Encoder. Send your master sequence to the render queue. ProRes 422HQ will do for the settings. Don't forget to enable sound for this export. Set it to output to the renders folder, save your project, and close After Effects. We're going to use the render engine of After Effects without having the application open. This allows more processing power to be allocated to the rendering process. Open your terminal window and do a quick memory purge. Next, do a spotlight search for AE render. Drag that into the terminal window, click space, -project, space, navigate to your After Effects project file that you just saved, drag that into the render queue, and hit enter. The terminal window will show you the progress of your render. Once the last frame has been processed, the render is complete. If you'd like H.264 versions of your film, bring the ProRes file into Media Encoder and make as many versions as you need. Congratulations, your film is totally finished. But now, you need to clear space off that work drive and prepare for the next project coming down the pipeline. Start by plugging in the 2 backup hard drives we saved the original media onto from segment 2. We are going to clone the folders using rsync again. Open terminal, and again type in the rsync command. Drag and drop the source with a backslash, and destination with a backslash. Obviously the source is the folder from your work drive you just finished exporting to, and the destination is the non-clone drive. After that's finished, clone the folder into the second drive, and now you are free to erase the project off your SSD. There are many creative processes that were not discussed in this series that I do, but I'm sure you have your own by now. The main goal was, again, to introduce you to an efficient, simple, and non-destructive workflow that you may not have heard before. Stop exporting XMLs and going into DaVinci just to do the exact same color wheel turning you could do in After Effects. And if all you're doing is putting some LUT over the top of your clips, grow up. That's not how the pros operate. Stop spending weeks transcoding all of your media just so it'll ingest into Avid. Not only is this time consuming, but it strips all of the important information out of your footage. Stop dynamically linking After Effects comps with Premiere and doing the back and forth RAM intensive thing. Same goes for sending compositions to Media Encoder through Premiere or After Effects. It takes way too long, is tough on your processor, and I've even had glitchy exports using this method in the past. Finish your business in one program, close it, and move on to the next. The most important thing to think about when it comes to your workflow is how will it hold up in the future. You really need to do some thinking before sailing out on a project. Set a course that anticipates future problems and is intuitive enough for you to remember the steps you took in the past. That way, when you need to revisit a project, edit a shorter version of it, for example, you can be up and running in no time. Scalability is also important. If you add 5 new producers to a production, you don't want the workflow to implode. Everything I just showed you works exactly the same and is just as effective whether you're a one-man band or a conglomerate agency cranking out several episodes a day. You'll just have to upgrade that SSD work drive to a network server and maybe use Dropbox to transfer small files. If you'd like to see how this project turned out, you can watch it here or on my Vimeo channel. There's a link below. Follow me on Instagram if you're interested in the wildlife photography side of the business, Vimeo for film releases, and make sure you share this with a colleague who's a little sloppy in the workflow department and could learn a thing or two. Thanks for watching.